Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 209 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to finish up with green circuit setup and see how it works. Enjoy. I think we have most things in place. Let's give this a test and see if there's anything else wrong with it. So the plates get distributed. Seems like at least that much is working correctly. There's some missing pipes in here. Let's see, that seems a little slow for an output. I think we only needed like 1.2 of these machines or something, but let's get it to fill up a little faster. Putting a red belt in there. Before we put the fiberglass boards in there, I kind of want to see it all filled up. Okay. In come the boards. And now we should start seeing some new circuit boards. They seem very slow. Very slow, but that's how it works with productivities. We only need 7.5 a second, so the demands are fairly low. Seems mostly green, just gotta wait for these machines at the bottom to get what they need, but it seems like it's catching up. I think it's pretty good. Getting our sweet, sweet green boards. And the robots are finishing up here. So next we have to put this in here, but we have a left component and a right component. The left component is this one right here, making the transistors. So let's grab it. Now this needs to get in here, but we do want to position it to line up with the other one. So maybe we should do that now and then place the whole thing as a unit and just let the robots run around pointlessly working on things. Because we want to get this in here. But not smushed in too much. How about like that? Make sure robots can still reach. Seems like they mostly can if there was one right here. So then this is what we need. And I'll remove that stuff there. That way, it'll all be lined up. And we do want to try to line up the machines with these ones if possible. I mean, we could smash them up here, but you see that there's a lot of overlap with the main bus, so we probably want to just space it down here. And just make it nice and even. Let's see, ceramic underground pipe in the way. That does make sense. We'll need to fix that. We'll give it one space. And plop it in there. And this pipe is probably going to have to go the long way. And we need more bot network. That is a lot of robots waiting to park. Well, it's a temporary thing. We need to get the resources in here as well. So we need our silicon, the silver wire, and the plastic bars. And I think all of those are already placed down here. So we just need to continue it along. Just making sure it's in the right slot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the same up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that's nice to see that at least that lined up. Now we can chop this out. Let's see, this doesn't quite reach, which I guess we can do with that. Plastic is right here. I want to make sure we're still making fiberglass boards because we're getting a couple of those warnings. Probably are. It's just we don't need very many of them, so yeah. It's going fine. We just don't need that many of them. And the paper is very slowly filling up there, which is fine. Probably doesn't need to be anywhere near that high. Oh well. So plastic zooms in. And then we need to be right here. Silver wire, which is kind of out of the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 8 on the second one, which is right here. And the wire goes in there. We do want to try to make any future builds be fully covered by robots if possible, especially the logistics network. So as we're going along, we should try to make sure that that is the case. That way there's no dead spots. I don't know about fixing all the old stuff, that might take a while, but anything new we build, we should definitely make sure that it's fully covered. Okay, I think we've got most of what we need here for the transistors. Let's check them. Well, they seem to be delivered properly. Silver wire. Seems good so far. Let's let it fill up. We definitely might run out of silver doing this, because we're going to have a lot of silver requirements now. But that was a limitation of the past. Now we can put out quite a bit. But we need to upgrade first, so we probably want to wait until we do tier 3 ore sorting, and then we can upgrade our silver production as well. But for now, there should be a sufficient buffer. But we can put in the plastic, and then this part should operate correctly. This is where things really start to be put to the test to make sure it doesn't get completely mixed up when it goes into that mess. They're kind of hard to see, but they look like they're going in there. And only going on one side of the belt, because that's all they get. But it seems to be working. Seems good so far. Okay, we had the other half of this setup to do. Of course, these pipes are probably going to be in the way again, but we shall see. This part right here. Don't need that in there. And it would line up right here. And it looks like it is. Although we could make it a little narrower. Let's just place it down for now. Where we had that input going there. Looks like it needs to be red. Then we can clear this part out. And we'll have to kind of find a way to squeeze it in here. Yeah. And put the underground in there. And extend the network out a little bit. And we'll let the robots handle that. We do need to get sulfuric acid in here. And the amount is reasonable enough that we should probably put it on a train. I don't know if we have a specific sulfuric acid train. We are putting it on the back of other trains. But I think we got rid of the specific train that did it. Unless there's one over here. Oh, there is one. Okay. That's good to see. We did a... it's been too long, I've forgotten. We did do an LTN train station with liquids. Delivering nutrient pulp, sulfuric acid, lubricant. And I guess we put a depot on the end of there. And there's polluted fish water, but that's not part of the LTN station. I guess it could be. I'm not sure why it isn't. It might be byproducts, but I think we did that to send stuff all the way up here, right? Yeah. Sulfuric acid for crystals. Well, what that means is we can copy this LTN station. Let's copy it from where the turn is. And then reuse it. And it will make an LTN train request. That's nice to have. It's kind of the power of LTN, is where you can just add stuff on without spending too much time thinking about it. Let's see. Can't really flip it. I don't know if I want to cover that. Well, it's kind of... It'll be kind of funny if it pulls off the same station. We could also, like, just put it right here. I don't know. Is that a really good rubite patch? 17 million? Yeah. That is a pretty good one. It's probably our best one. So I don't really want to cover it up. And actually, there is a little bit of overlap that can be done. Looks like they're not quite spaced the same. We could probably do it something like this. And turn off that LTN combinator, but I guess it won't be on because we don't have any in our inventory. We'll try to line this other one up with it as well. Let's go straight a little bit so we have room to put the T in there. Because there's kind of a lot going on here right now. So we can do that in there. The way out of the intersection gets a regular signal. Any other ways going through the intersection. Get the chains. Hopefully that covers that. We haven't really had a problem because we're using big trains and LTN is keeping the amount of trains that are actually flying around fairly low. So it's kind of interesting we're this far into the factory and we really don't have like a bunch of trains flying around everywhere, which is nice. Let's see, we need an input and it's kind of too much going on to put an input from up above, but it really wouldn't do that anyway because there's really no way for that to happen. Plus, there's roundabouts in this setup, so if something isn't lined up correctly, a train will be able to go through a roundabout and find the correct direction it needs to. Let's build that LTN train stop. Plop it in here. Sulfuric acid. It's nice that it says crystal, so we can clarify. Circuit. Unload. Do we have multiple sulfuric acid unloads? Is that why I did that? Ah, yes, we had one for intermediates too. Makes sense. Okay, we need to make the LTN combinator and quickly shut it off when it turns on. Off. Make sure these settings are correct first. Well, we do want sulfuric acid. 200,000, which is the amount that fits in all of these. Request threshold is 148,000. Does that make sense for these trains? With 4 cars of 37,000 each, that does. Limit trains of 1. I think it's good. We don't really need to change anything about that. Let's cycle it. And there it makes a request 15,000 or 150,000. But it fills up, and because it's fluids, it does it very fast. And there goes the train. And as fast as the jetpack is, I am not beating the train there. So let's check out these combinator settings. Yeah, I'm not sure why it asked for 150,000 when it really should have only held 148,000. But I'm wondering if this is a rounding thing, because it says 37K. And 37 times 4 is 148, but I'm wondering if it's actually 37.5, because then that would be the 150,000. So that could be a rounding thing, but it is a little dangerous if these numbers are slightly wrong. But it's worked up until this point, so I kind of don't want to mess with it. We'll just have to check in the future to see if anything gets messed up. But while we're here, we did need to place a radar, and I wanted to put it in a decent spot rather than one that's accessible via robot. So how about like right here? There we go. Now we have sight again. Okay, robot should basically be done with that part of the setup. So now we need to send the acid down here as well. Looks like this pipe has wiggled a little bit in its time. But let's try to line it up with that other one. Then we got to come in through here. Just out of curiosity, I wonder how we're doing on landfill this whole time. So 10,000 there, about 20,000 there. It's interesting the numbers are different. You'd think they'd be about the same. Could be the robots are just pulling from this one to refill my inventory, and that's why it's lower. And we also have more landfill down here being made. So multiple sources. So hopefully we never have that problem where we run out again. Because that was a little annoying. And there's few things in Factorio that if you run out of, it's a real pain to get them, because you can just, you know, mine more iron ore if you need iron ore or something. But if you need landfill, that is something that is very hard to create in large quantities. And that's kind of the problem we ran into, where there wasn't a whole lot we could really do to improve production other than kind of wasting that saline water in order to generate some. And even then, it's not very fast. So hopefully future disasters are now averted. Okay, we got this thing we need to line up. Of course, it's perfectly lined up here, which is not the way I want it to be. Let's see, let's line this one up right there instead. So let's throw the acid in there. And probably want that pump in there to pressurize it, because it's coming from so far away. There we go. So we need to get all the resources in here. One of the real important ones is getting this rubber. And for that we need to move the road along, and this is right in the way. But we probably can sort of squeeze around there. And we'll do a little zigzag and then fix it later. Well, that looks kind of dumb, but I think it'll accomplish the job. Now the pipe has to do some zigzags to get it off the road. So we need to request that rubber. And I think we determined this is really one of the only uses for it. But we also don't need very much of it, and I don't want to monopolize it on this one area. So even though one drone is going to be quite slow, let's just put one here for now. And we can always just drop some rubber in here to start the process up real fast if we need to. Yeah, but it might be here before we've got all this set up. So we need tinned copper wire and carbon. And carbon's one of those things we sent 2 belts of because we need so much of it. And in fact, this might kind of cause further problems because it's yet another thing that uses carbon. But we'll have to see. As always, you never know how things are going to work until you try. And I really don't want to have like a bajillion belts of one thing on the bus. That's kind of like too much. Looks like it's finally delivering some fuel over there. Is that a situation where a fuel depot was really far away? Yeah, it kind of seems like it. Not that it really matters at this point, but it might help any future setups. If we did build a fuel depot around here. So let's find one. Right here. And plop it in there. Because of all the productivity modules, we just don't need very much of the basic resources anymore. So we only need 2.15 carbon. So we can connect these up and see how the resistors work. Seems to be a lack of lights in here. There we go. Let's see, these are kind of inverted, how they would be expected to be. Also, it seems like speed is not an issue at all. They probably don't even need to be the stacked ones. Overall, it just seems like a lot of machines. Oh, it's because of, they're not using the correct modules. So wondering why they seemed so fast. Still seem fast. I guess not. They might just have a buffer they have to work through, but resistors are getting delivered. They're getting put on that half of those belts. So far so good. And now it's starting to hiccup at the end. So we need those extra inserters. Hey, the rubber just got here. Nice. So we need to do the other supporting components for our integrated circuits, which is our plastic, the wire, and more silicon. Silicon is up here. And it fits in here. Out of all the things to hook up, I kind of want to hook up things that go into other machines first, so I don't hook them up to the wrong belt and have everything get mixed up. So since I know we need to chop up silicon, let's hook that one up. And we need more of that tinned wire. And we need the rubber, but that inserter is on the wrong side. Let's see, these are all inserting on the same side. I don't think we need that one down there. I think this will work just fine. Let's see. So silicon comes down. Seems to be mostly good. I don't think we need a full 15 a second. And they're getting distributed in there. Although it's on half of a belt, which would be 7.5. So in this situation, we do need this to be red. It might help to have one extra one. I did put it there, so we'll do that. So that's all good. Then the wire comes down. And let's throw in the rubber. It's so long. Almost done. And then it just does its thing. It has a long time to put all the wires down. But then they get distributed. And now we wait for it to catch up. Well, another thing we want to make sure we're covering is any extra resources in our inventory. From the bot network, we're covering these circuit boards. We'll want to cover these components as well. I don't think we necessarily need to have one on each side so it's perfectly even, because this really only applies to situations where we picked up a little in our inventory and it needs to go somewhere. It's not going to be very often, so we probably don't need to go nuts with this. You know, just have this set to transistors. And that's all we need to worry about. We can do the same down here on the end for the resistors. And we certainly wouldn't have any in our inventory right now, but we can do the same for integrated circuits. And now we can get rid of those extras that we've been hanging on to for quite a while. They should be in here. It looks like we also have some solder to get rid of. We close all this off, and rubber too, actually. But we can grab the resistors. And here they come. And the transistors. To take them where they need to go. So we also wanted to cover the rubber and the solder. So we could just put one right here. Asking for the rubber. And drop it in. And it's one square out. And that covers that. And solder, because it is no longer in coil form, makes it a little more difficult to deliver. So we just kind of need to pick somewhere that needs it. Certainly this setup will. And there's lots of places it could potentially go. I think in this situation, because of how this is set up, I will do 2 chests for delivery. And actually, we might as well take what we have and throw it in there to populate it. So solder, which we have a lot of in here. And rubber. And hopefully when I release this lock, it won't just dump things back in here. And actually the insulated wire to an extent as well. We'll have other things to do with it, but this is a decent enough place just to dump it. And it looks like the solder is getting here and being distributed. It's fine that it's only on one side. It would normally be on both and then be split back to one side for here. So far it is continuing to be correct. Let's give these guys some places to park. Nothing seems mixed up quite yet. So no more insulated wire. Hopefully they pick it up and take it to the right place, unless it's not a part of logistics here. Kind of seems like it wouldn't be. And also we have a red mark for copper. Does that mean we actually don't have any copper plates being delivered? Probably, because we had so many extra ones that up until this point it just grabbed them. But are we out now? Yeah, we used them all for science, so we actually don't have any left. Okay, well, yet another thing jammed in here. Rubber, which we don't want any of. An insulated wire, maybe. I mean, for handcrafting, we certainly would need some, but none of this stuff would really be things we would be handcrafting. We would already have it on a bus somewhere, so we don't need any insulated wire either. And 0. And they're taking them where they need to go. Okay, the last thing we needed for here was plastic. And now that everything is delivered, we know that this is the one that plastic goes on, because it's the only one that's remaining. So we should start getting our components now. Probably very slowly again, because of all the productivities. Those are kind of a cool little model. Still a little hard to see though, but getting delivered. It's kind of hard to believe that that's actually enough. We need 15 per second. Yeah, that's enough. So they're getting shot down into the other part of the belt. So it looks like the only thing we need to deliver are the actual circuit boards, which go down here, and then the finished ones, which go up. And I guess solder too. Since we're just using extras, we haven't needed it, but that's nice to see. A nice assembly line of circuits. Solder, I think, is still on the other side. Come in through here, take the available spot, and grab even more belts. How are we doing on our overload of belts here? Yeah, still got quite a few of them in there. And we can deliver that in there. And it'll top up the other side. I'm actually kind of worried that it's not going to fill it up all the way. So I'm going to do a little circuit network here. And these can be on. As long as solder is equal to 0. Does that make sure it gets all used up? Okay. We're about at the point where the magic starts to happen. We need to figure out another part of the bus to use for our circuit boards to make it down here to the train to get taken to wherever it needs to go. So we need 2 slots. Well, 1 could be the board, and then 2 is the finished version, which can come in here. And I guess we'll just use this one. Can kind of clean this up a little bit. Or it'll go down here, in here. And I think these are all set, yep, to 48,000, so that will fill that up. And then mostly make it available. We still need to kind of configure this. This was set to some of the original test settings here. It's been a while, so I have to remind myself what needs to be changed. I think it's just the combinators that are doing the settings. So we just need to switch this to the correct thing. And that should make them available on the network. And we have a very long belt to run. Unless we don't want to do it this way. The other option is to go through the top like we did with the other things. That might make more sense, since it seems unlikely that anything down here is ever going to need that. Because it's only new parts of the bus that would require the green circuits. So we can probably save some belts in the long run by going up. Plus, long term, belts kill your UPS, so kind of want to try to save it if possible. So I'm not sure where to go up. I guess we'll just do this. So we can come up, but we still need to choose the right belt, which does make this a bit tricky. Where we want to pick the 2 that are below here. So that's number 1, number 2, number 3, slots 5 and 6. Although I think we're already using one of them for the boards. Number 5. So I guess it would be 6 and 7. And the one on the top is probably going to be the one that does the delivery. So the output would come up here. And get sent on its way. We are going to want a provider chest somewhere in here. At least for now. To give us access to what we need. We'll just make it 1 stack. And we also need to deliver any extras with a storage chest. So we'll do this. Although for consistency, we might want to do it up here, like we did the others. And it is kind of weird having a storage chest and a provider chest right next to each other. They're doing something similar. But the problem is if we just use a storage chest, that won't supply us with resources if there's none on the network. We need the provider chest to supply us with resources, and then the storage chest as the dump. Although in this situation, it kind of makes sense for their positions to be reversed, where the storage chest comes first, it puts it on, and then there's something to take it off. So we have to deliver the resources in here. They'll go up, and then take this slot right here, and then come down in here. So with that, I think we're mostly set up here. It's about time. Let's get some green circuits. The rate at which we need these is much less than 30 a second, so this yellow belt should be fine. It looks like it wouldn't be. But it is because of the multiple layers of productivity modules. So let's let this build up a bit. And then get it started. And let's hope this is all lined up. The green is so much more vibrant than everything else in here. Here we go. That was a long amount of time to make these. That makes sense. So many productivity modules. And it's nice that when productivity modules slow things down, it kind of gives you a reason to have the faster machines. Not necessarily just produce stuff really fast, but to kind of counter how slow the productivity modules get. Well, everything seems to be moving along. Looks like that logic is working correctly to empty that chest. And I'll set this to red here just to empty as quickly as possible. Probably won't matter too much. But it might. Just so it's nice and full. There we go. Well, there's a lot of green, except the places where the boards haven't made it yet. Otherwise, looking pretty good. See, that's just about emptied. And there we go, now that it is. These are operating correctly. Probably should do nears and fars, though. There we go. Making circuits. You can see how even with this thing running at full blast, it's like using the tiniest bit of rubber. Like it's barely touching it. That's why we can get away with just using a little bit of byproducts to make our rubber. Which is nice. That might not be the case forever, but it is the case now. And let's see on this side. Everything's looking pretty good. Over here. Seemingly pretty good. And a pretty decent power consumption when all that's going. 128 megawatts, but that's how it's going to be. Our factory is kind of not necessarily running out of power, but definitely if everything's running at the same time, it can kind of start running out. You can see that our accumulator charge is going down. I mean, it's about to be daytime, but we might, at least for now, need more batteries. But it seems like it'll hold, but we're kind of at that point where we need to consider having more power. And luckily, nuclear power is around the corner, so hopefully that won't be an issue. We'll be able to hold out until then. And we'll set this to the circuits, and these are just based on the numbers from the combinators there. Looking good. So that will eventually be available to the network. And finally, let's make a request for it. And let's just use another space. And you still need to handle that copper. So there we go. Let's get our 200. And there they go. Now we've got 3 tiers of circuits in our inventory, which unlocks all manners of things, which will be exciting to get into. Let's fix this copper real quick before I forget. We just need to pick a spot that's using copper. It's being used somewhere because it got extended all the way down here. Okay, so it's being used making the heat pipes. So we'll do the passive provider with an inserter going in with 1 square. And now it's yellow, meaning that robots are going to come deliver. And there they are. Alright, looking good. Now it's time to find some things to use these green circuits on. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.